Some choices happen before thought has time to speak, before logic steps in, before the mind begins its familiar work of explaining, comparing, and judging. This is where instinct lives. Instinct does not argue. It does not ask for reasons or wait for permission. It simply responds. And often, those fast, quiet responses reveal more about your inner world than hours of careful thinking ever could. When a choice is made quickly, it rises from a place beneath language, beneath habit, beneath the layers of social conditioning you have absorbed over a lifetime. It comes from the unconscious, that vast territory within you that holds everything you have felt, feared, wanted, and forgotten. That is why these moments matter so deeply. They bypass the stories you tell yourself and touch something more honest, something immediate and alive. This is why you're being asked not to think. Thinking serves many purposes, but it is not always truthful. The mind protects. It edits. It delays and disguises. Instinct does none of these things. When you choose quickly, you are not being careless or reckless. You are being receptive. You are allowing something real to surface before the conscious mind can shape it into something safer or more acceptable. Fast choices carry emotional weight precisely because they arise from what is already active inside you. They reveal where your energy is moving right now, in this moment, not where you believe it should be moving. There is no right or wrong in what emerges. Only awareness, only the quiet noticing of what pulls you before explanation takes over. And now, gently, a symbol appears. The snake. It does not rush into your attention or demand recognition. It waits, patient and still, as has always waited throughout human history. The snake is not here to frighten you or test your courage. It arrives quietly, the way many important truths do, without announcement or fanfare. For some, it brings curiosity, a leaning forward, an opening. For others, it brings discomfort, a pulling back, a tensing. Both reactions carry meaning. Both deserve attention. The snake has always lived close to instinct, close to the ground, close to what is hidden but undeniably alive. If your attention shifts toward it, even slightly, without a clear reason you can name, that is enough. Do not explain the feeling. Simply notice that it exists. This is where the journey begins. This process works because it speaks the same language as your unconscious mind. The unconscious does not communicate through logic or careful explanation. It speaks through images and sensations, through attraction and resistance, through feelings that arrive before you have words to describe them. Long before you form a conscious thought, your inner world has already responded to what it perceives. A symbol can reach places that words cannot access. That is why simple images often create strong reactions without any effort on your part. When something pulls your attention or creates discomfort in your body, that response is not random or meaningless. It is communication, quiet but precise, rising from depths you may rarely visit with your waking mind. Analysis, useful as it is, interrupts this delicate process. The moment you begin explaining your choice, the mind steps forward to control the experience. It compares your reaction to what seems normal. It judges what arises as good or bad. It searches for meaning instead of allowing meaning to surface on its own. Analysis is not wrong, but when it arrives too early, it filters the signal. It replaces raw instinct with comfortable interpretation. This experience asks you to delay that habit, not to abandon thinking forever, but to step aside from it long enough for something deeper to be felt. Insight appears most clearly when the mind learns to listen instead of always leading. Your emotional reactions hold the key to understanding what follows: calm or fear, curiosity or tension, familiarity or resistance. None of these responses are mistakes or signs of failure. They are information, pure and valuable. The unconscious speaks through feeling long before it speaks through understanding. Sometimes the strongest insights emerge from what feels uncomfortable, not because discomfort signals danger, but because it touches something real that you have been avoiding. Do not correct what you feel. Do not search a response that seems safest or most flattering. Simply notice what arises within you, without judgment. This is not measuring your intelligence or defining your personality. It is revealing where your inner world is active right now, through the emotions that appear without being invited. The snake is one of the oldest symbols carried by the human psyche. Long before psychology existed as a discipline, long before anyone had names for the forces moving within us, cultures across the world used the image of the snake to represent experiences that were difficult to explain but impossible to ignore. It appeared in myths and healing traditions, in spiritual stories and dire warnings. Sometimes it was feared above all else. Sometimes it was honored as sacred. Often it was both simultaneously. This is because the snake touches something ancient in the unconscious, something shared across time and geography and culture. It lives close to the earth, moves without sound, and appears suddenly when least expected. It does not announce itself. It is noticed only when attention becomes sharp and present. Fear and wisdom have always lived together in the symbol. The snake carries danger, but also knowledge. In countless traditions, it guards sacred spaces and hidden truths. It forces awareness upon those who encounter it. You cannot ignore a snake once you have seen it. Your body will not allow such dismissal. In psychological terms, this mirrors those moments in life when something inside you demands attention, a truth you can no longer avoid, a feeling that keeps returning no matter how many times you push it away. Fear arises not because the snake is evil or malevolent, but because it brings you face to face with what has been hidden from view. At the same time, wisdom emerges from that confrontation. Awareness grows whenever you are willing to look at what you have been avoiding. In Jungian psychology, the snake is linked to transformation, not loud or sudden change, but deep, organic change that moves through you like seasons moving through a landscape. The snake grows by shedding its skin. It does not add layers of protection. It releases what no longer serves. This process is natural, necessary, and often deeply uncomfortable. Psychologically, this reflects those periods in life when old identities, beliefs, or emotional patterns no longer fit the person you are becoming. They begin to feel tight and restrictive, painful in ways you cannot quite explain. Letting them go can feel like loss, even grief, even when the release leads to genuine growth. The presence of the snake in your awareness suggests that something within you is ready to change, not because you are broken or flawed, but because you are alive, and everything alive must transform to continue living. If you feel drawn to the snake, even slightly, pay attention to that pull. Attraction does not always arrive as desire or comfort or pleasant anticipation. Sometimes it comes as curiosity that you cannot explain. Sometimes as tension that will not release. Sometimes as a feeling you have no name for at all. In the language of the unconscious, being drawn to something means it carries information relevant to your current inner state. The snake does not appear in your awareness because you admire it or understand it fully. It appears because something in you recognizes its energy. That recognition happens quietly, beneath the threshold of conscious thought. Understand the difference between attraction and comfort. Comfort pulls you toward what is familiar and safe. Attraction, in a deeper psychological sense, often pulls you toward what is necessary for your growth. The snake may not feel pleasant. It may feel unsettling or even threatening. That discomfort does not weaken the significance of your response. It strengthens it. The unconscious often guides us toward what we need confront, not toward what reassures us or confirms what we already believe. This is why some most meaningful choices in life feel uncomfortable at first. They touch areas that have been ignored too long, delayed too often, or protected too fiercely. Resistance plays a powerful role in this process. If part you wanted to look away from the snake, that reaction matters just as much as curiosity or attraction. Resistance is not failure. It is signal. It suggests that the symbol has come close to something sensitive, something important that you have not fully faced. Often we resist what challenges our current understanding of ourselves. We resist what threatens the stability we have worked so hard to create. The mind wants equilibrium, even when the soul needs growth. The snake asks for honesty, not courage. You do not need to like what it represents. You only need to notice your response to its presence. In that simple noticing, the real work begins. If the first snake stood out to you, it suggests that awareness plays a central role in your inner world right now. This is a snake of perception, and those drawn to its energy often notice far more than they ever speak about. You may sense shifts in mood before any words are spoken. You may feel tension filling a room when everyone else seems oblivious. Your mind and body pick up on signals that others overlook or actively choose to ignore. This is not imagination or wishful thinking. It is sensitivity that has been sharpened by experience. Awareness like this often develops in response to environments where paying close attention genuinely mattered, where missing a subtle cue could lead to difficulty or pain. There's real strength in seeing clearly. You are likely someone who understands situations beneath their surface presentation. You recognize patterns that others miss entirely. You sense when something is wrong even before you can articulate why you feel that way. This kind of awareness makes you insightful, intuitive, and emotionally intelligent in ways that others may depend upon without fully realizing they are doing so. But this awareness carries a cost that you know well. Constant perception leads to exhaustion. When you see what others avoid seeing, you carry information that is rarely shared or acknowledged. You may feel mentally tired without any obvious reason. You may withdraw from situations simply to escape the overwhelming flood of stimulation. The challenge you face is not to dull your awareness or pretend you do not notice what you notice. The challenge is to manage this gift with care and wisdom. Ask yourself where you are observing too much without giving yourself adequate rest. Awareness becomes wisdom only when it is balanced with boundaries that protect your energy. Otherwise, it turns inward and consumes the very strength that makes it valuable. If the second snake called to you, it often points toward transformation that is already in motion beneath the surface of your life. This is the snake of change. Something within you is shifting. Even if your outer circumstances have not yet caught up to the inner movement, you may feel different than you once did, less connected to roles that used to define you, less motivated by goals that once seemed essential, less certain of an identity that once felt solid and reliable. What previously felt natural may now feel restrictive in ways you struggle to explain. This does not mean you have lost your direction or made wrong choices. It means your inner world is outgrowing a shape that served you well for a time, but can no longer contain who you are becoming. Leaving old identities behind is deeply unsettling work. Identities provide structure and security. They help you understand who you are in relation to others. When they begin to loosen their grip, uncertainty rushes in to fill the space. You may feel restless without knowing what you are restless for, distracted without knowing what deserves your focus, unsure where you belong when you used to feel so certain. This stage of not knowing often arrives long before clarity returns. The unconscious initiates transformation before the conscious mind can explain what is happening or why. The snake sheds its skin without knowing exactly how the new one will fit or what it will look like. It trusts the process because growth requires release before it offers rewards. Fear of the unknown walks beside you during these times. When the familiar falls away, the mind desperately searches for guarantees that everything will work out. But transformation rarely offers such assurances. This snake suggests that part of you is learning to move forward without complete certainty, to trust the process even when you cannot see where it leads. The task before you is not to rush toward a new identity that will make you feel safe again. The task is to allow space for transition, uncomfortable as that space may feel. Ask yourself what you are being invited to release, not because it failed you, but because it no longer reflects the person you are becoming. If the third snake captured your attention, it may be pointing toward power that has been held back for far too long. This is the snake of suppressed energy. Often, this energy takes the form of anger that was never allowed expression, or desire that was labeled dangerous, or ambition that made others uncomfortable, or assertiveness that disrupted the peace others wanted you to maintain. At some point in your history, you learned that expressing these parts of yourself created consequences you could not afford. Conflict arose. Rejection followed. Stability shattered. So you adapted, as all humans must adapt to survive their circumstances. You quieted what felt too intense. You learned to contain rather than express. You became skilled at holding back the very forces that wanted most urgently to move through you. In Jungian terms, this material belongs to the shadow. The shadow is not composed of your worst qualities or your shameful secrets. It is composed of every trait that was not welcomed by the world you grew up in. What gets pushed into shadow does not disappear simply because you stopped expressing it. It remains active beneath your awareness, influencing your reactions in ways you may not recognize, creating tension you cannot explain, shaping emotional patterns that repeat despite your best efforts to change them. You may notice sudden irritation that seems disproportionate to its cause, strong reactions to certain people who trigger something unnamed within you, a sense of frustration that builds without release. These experiences are not character flaws or signs of dysfunction. They are signals rising from depth. They point towards strength that has not yet found a conscious and healthy outlet. Reclaiming this power does not mean acting on every impulse without thought or consequence. It does not mean becoming aggressive or abandoning consideration you show to others. It means recognizing what lives within you without shame or apology. Strength that is acknowledged can be guided with wisdom. Strength that is denied leaks out in ways that harm you and those around you. Ask yourself where you have been minimizing your own needs to keep others comfortable, where you have been suppressing your desires because expressing them felt too risky, where you have been softening your boundaries because holding them created friction you wanted to avoid. The work before you is not to eliminate your intensity or become someone easier for the world to digest. The work is to integrate this power consciously, so it serves your life rather than disrupting it from the shadows. If the forest snake drew you in, it often signals a phase of healing that has already begun within you. This is the snake of restoration. Healing rarely announces itself with immediate relief or sudden clarity. More often, it begins by bringing old wounds back into awareness when you least expect them. Memories you thought you had processed return with fresh emotional weight. Feelings you believed were settled rise again to the surface. Sensations in your body remind you of experiences you thought were far behind you. This resurfacing does not mean you are regressing or losing ground you had gained. It means something is ready to be processed at a deeper level than was possible before. The psyche only revisits what it now has the strength to face. If old pain is returning to your awareness, it is because some part of you has grown strong enough to finally heal it properly. This kind of healing moves at its own pace, which is almost always slower than you want it to be. There may be periods of unusual tiredness that have no medical explanation, sensitivity that makes ordinary experiences feel overwhelming, emotional openness that arrives without warning and leaves you feeling exposed. You might feel drawn inward, craving more rest than usual, more solitude, more gentleness than your normal life allows. These needs are not weakness or self-indulgence. They are the requirements of genuine restoration. Just as the body heals gradually and cannot be rushed without consequence, so does the inner world require time and patience. Pushing yourself to heal faster often creates resistance that slows the process further. Allowing the natural rhythm of repair creates space for something real to mend. Patience and self-trust become essential during this time. The snake does not force healing to happen on a schedule. It allows healing to unfold according to its own mysterious timing. If this snake spoke to you, your task is not to fix yourself through effort or will. Your task is to listen, to notice what your inner world is asking for, and provide it without judgment. Ask yourself where you are being invited to soften rather than push harder, where kindness toward yourself would serve better than discipline or expectation. Healing happens when you trust that your inner world knows what it needs and when it needs it. Your role is simply to remain present, honest, and patient as the process continues beneath the surface of your daily life. Every symbol carries a shadow, and the snake is no exception to this truth. The shadow of the snake appears when inner work becomes a sophisticated form of avoidance, when the pursuit of awareness becomes secrecy that separates you from others, when the process of growth becomes a reason to withdraw from life rather than engage with it more fully. This distortion happens quietly, often without conscious recognition. You may tell yourself that you are changing, that you are healing, that you are finally understanding yourself at a deeper level. And these things may be true, but at the same time, you may be pulling away from relationships that ask something of you, avoiding responsibilities that feel demanding, sidestepping difficult conversations that would require vulnerability. The movement looks like depth from the inside, but underneath the surface, it is fear wearing a spiritual disguise. Isolation can feel safe during periods of significant interchange. Silence can feel protective when you are processing experiences that words cannot capture. Privacy can feel necessary when you are encountering parts of yourself that others might not understand. And for a time, often, these instincts serve a genuine purpose. Space is sometimes exactly what growth requires. But when withdrawal becomes your default response to difficulty, when solitude becomes a wall rather than a sanctuary, growth begins to narrow rather than expand. The shadow of the snake hides rather than sheds. It coils inward, guarding its insights jealously instead of integrating them into lived experience. You may develop a sense that no one truly understands you, or could understand you if you tried to explain, that sharing yourself would be too exhausting or too vulnerable to risk. This feeling of separation is not a sign of advanced development or superior insight. It is almost always a sign of vulnerability that has not yet found the support it needs. When growth turns into hiding, the inner world becomes heavy with its own contents. Awareness without connection becomes a special kind of loneliness. Transformation without grounding can feel endless, as though you are always becoming but never arriving. The snake's teaching in this shadow place is balance. Depth is meant to be lived and shared, not protected behind walls that keep others at a safe distance. Ask yourself where reflection has quietly become retreat, where understanding has replaced the risk of action, where insight has become an excuse to remain separate from the mess and beauty of ordinary human life. The snake does not ask you to disappear into the unconscious and never return. It asks you to bring what you discover there back into the world, gently and honestly, in relationship with the people and circumstances that surround you. In Jungian psychology, genuine growth is never about choosing one inner force and rejecting all others. It is about integration. Integration means allowing different parts of your psyche to exist in dialogue rather than in constant conflict. The snake represents instinct in depth and the necessity of change. But instinct alone, without the balancing presence of consciousness, is not enough to guide a life well. When snake energy operates without awareness, it becomes impulsive in ways that cause harm. It becomes secretive in ways that create isolation. It becomes overwhelming in ways that destabilize rather than transform. But when this same energy is brought into the light of consciousness, it becomes a source of profound wisdom. The raw power of the instincts, guided by awareness, creates a life that is both vital and wise. Balancing snake energy with consciousness means staying present with what unfolds inside you without being swept away by it. It means noticing urges when they arise without immediately acting on them or suppressing them in fear. It means feeling your fears fully while still choosing your response thoughtfully. Consciousness gives shape to instinct. It provides a container that allows powerful forces to move through you without destroying what you have built. In this way, the snake becomes a guide rather than a ruler. It shows you where life is moving within you, where energy wants to flow, where change is pressing against the walls of your current existence. But it does not dictate every decision or override your capacity for reflection. You learn to listen to its wisdom while maintaining your ability to choose. You are not meant to become the snake or to be possessed by what it represents. You are meant to learn from it while remaining yourself. The snake sheds its skin, but does not abandon its essential nature in the process. It transforms while continuing to be exactly what it is. In the same way, integration allows you to change profoundly without erasing the core of who you have always been. Awareness keeps you grounded while growth unfolds. Consciousness provides stability, while instinct provides movement. Ask yourself how you can honor what the snake reveals to you without losing your balance in the process. How you can embrace its wisdom without being consumed by its intensity. Integration is rarely a dramatic moment of sudden wholeness. It is a steady process of listening carefully, adjusting gradually, and bringing what was unconscious into the light of understanding where it can serve your life. Now is a moment for a quiet reflection rather than conclusions. You do not need to solve anything or reach a final understanding of what this experience has meant. This is simply an invitation to notice what remains with you after the words have stopped. Ask yourself what in this experience felt familiar. Was it the attraction you felt toward a particular image? The discomfort that arose unexpectedly? The sense of recognition, as though something you already knew was being spoken aloud? Or perhaps the resistance, the part of you that wanted to dismiss or look away? Often, the The strongest insight comes not from what you understood most clearly, but from what stayed with you longest without explanation, from the feeling that lingered after the thought had passed. Let that feeling remain without rushing to name it or place it in a category you already understand. You might gently ask yourself where in your life you currently feel tension that has not been resolved, where uncertainty has taken up residence, where something feels ready to shift even though you cannot see what will become. There is no need to judge these areas of your life or force them toward resolution before their time. Awareness itself creates movement. Sometimes the most honest and powerful response to what you are feeling is simply to acknowledge that you are feeling it. That is enough. That is more than enough. Do not pressure yourself to understand everything this experience has stirred within you. The unconscious does not reveal itself completely in a single encounter. It unfolds gradually over time through repeated moments of noticing and small acts of honesty that accumulate into larger understanding. This reflection is not meant to define you permanently or place you in a fixed category. It is meant to keep you in living conversation with the depths of yourself. Stay open to what continues to emerge. Stay curious about what you do not yet understand. Let the questions linger rather than forcing answers that might be premature. Growth often begins not with clarity or resolution, but with the simple willingness to keep listening when listening is difficult. What you have experienced here is not a test in any conventional sense. It has not measured your intelligence or assessed your personality or evaluated your psychological health. It has acted as a mirror, reflecting back to you something already present within your inner world. The snake that drew your attention did not assign you an identity or reveal a fixed truth about who you are. It reflected a movement already taking place beneath the surface of your awareness, a psychological climate, a tension seeking resolution, a shift that has not yet completed itself, an awareness that is active in this particular moment of your life. A different symbol might call to you at a different time, and that would not mean your early response was wrong or that you have failed to understand yourself. It would simply mean that you are changing, as all living things must change. The inner world is not static. It moves and shifts and reorganizes itself constantly. What captures your attention today may release its hold tomorrow, making space for something new to emerge. This kind of inner work does not conclude with a single insight or a moment of understanding that answers all questions. It continues quietly, often beneath the threshold of conscious thought, doing its work in the background while you attend to the demands of daily life. As you move forward from this experience, you may begin to notice themes that appeared here showing up in unexpected places, in the decisions you face, in your reactions to ordinary events, in relationships that suddenly feel different, in moments of pause that arrive without warning. This is how the unconscious communicates with those who are willing to listen, not through dramatic revelations that change everything at once, but through patterns and repetitions that gradually make their meaning clear. The journey you are on does not require forcing understanding to arrive before its time. It requires staying honest with yourself about what you feel, remaining present to what emerges, trusting the process even when you cannot see where it leads. If this reflection has resonated with you, take a moment to sit with what remains. There is no need to do anything with what you have experienced, no action required, no conclusion to reach. Simply allow what has been stirred to settle in its own time. You may choose to return to these ideas later, when distance has created clarity. You may find that the meaning deepens as your life provides new context for understanding. Expression can deepen awareness, especially when it happens without the pressure to be certain or complete. Speaking or writing about what you have noticed, even in simple and incomplete ways, often reveals dimensions of experience that silent reflection cannot access. But this expression should never be forced. It should arise naturally when you feel ready to share something of what you have encountered within yourself. Remember that the purpose of everything you have experienced here is not to reach a final answer that closes the question forever. The purpose is to remain in dialogue with yourself, to keep the conversation open between your conscious mind and the depths that inform it. The path forward does not demand perfection or complete clarity. It asks only for attention, for patience, for the willingness to keep listening as your inner world continues to speak in its own language, at its own pace, revealing what you are ready to see when you are ready to see it. The snake will return in other forms, at other times, whenever something within you is ready to shed what no longer serves. Whenever transformation presses against the edges of your current life, whenever healing moves beneath the surface, whenever power asks to be reclaimed, you will recognize it not by its appearance, but by the feeling it creates within you. That ancient feeling of recognition, that mixture of fear and wisdom that has accompanied human beings for as long as we have been capable of awareness. Trust what you have felt here. It is yours. It has always been yours. And it will continue to guide you as you move forward into whatever comes next.